Good afternoon. I'm Jim Inkster, your moderator. As mentioned, your number is 877-217-5757. The governor of Louisiana, John Bel Edwards, the 56th governor, is with us on his 54th birthday, and appropriately, this is the 54th time he has come before the citizens of the great state of Louisiana via Ask the Governor. And happy birthday, Governor Edwards.
Thank you very much, Jim. I appreciate that. It's been an interesting birthday already, a good one, though, I have to tell you. But it is hard for me to believe that we've done this show 54 times. But I want to thank you and all the folks there at the network because you all have been very committed to this, and I appreciate it.
And likewise, you're one of the few, if any, governors in America doing this. And if we've spent 54 hours together, that means we've spent 2 days and 6 hours together completely. So we still like each other. So, hey.
Yes, sir.
Well, speaking of, on the 54th birthday, the first caller today is Donna in Baton Rouge. Good afternoon, Donna.
Good afternoon, Jim. How are you?
I'm doing well, and this is a familiar voice. It sounds like the First Lady of the great state of Louisiana.
I think so.
Yes. I'm calling in to wish my favorite person a very happy birthday on his 54th birthday. So happy birthday, honey. I hope you have a great day.
Thank you, Donna. Appreciate you. Love you.
Yeah.
Love you, too. He has been such a tremendous support for our family, but for the state. And so I just wanted to call in and wish him a very, very happy 54th birthday on his 54th time on your show.
Wonderful. And you've been together for probably maybe 40 of his birthdays?
It's about that. Yeah, I was 14 or so when we started dating, if that's what you call it when you're 14. So yes, it's been very close to 40 years, and it's hard to believe that that's the case too. But I've been very blessed in my life, and of course, Don is one of the greatest blessings that I've been able to enjoy.
Well, Donna Edwards, thanks for your work as First Lady.
Thank you, Jim.
Hopefully we'll have you back sometime very soon. Thank you so much.
Okay. God bless. Bye-bye.
God bless you. It's been a busy news day. There was a decision today in federal court from Judge Shelley Dick about the voting process in Louisiana. And according to Judge Dick, our state should allow more access to absentee mail ballots for the November 3rd elections. And this ended up in her courtroom because the governor, who is with us, and the Secretary of State had differing plans on how to proceed. Obviously, this is a victory today for the governor. Kyle Ardoin, the Secretary of State, has issued a statement, Governor, saying we have received and are currently reviewing Judge Dick's ruling. A decision as how to proceed will be made after careful consideration of the facts is weighed with the fact that absentee voting currently underway for some voters is currently underway, and early voting is mere weeks away. And we are 48 days away from an election. What's your take on what this decision means today?
Well, it was an appropriate decision. I think one absolutely required by the law and the facts. You have a constitutional right to vote, and you shouldn't have to compromise your health or the health of someone else in order to do that. And the relief that was granted by the court is what we asked for, what I asked for, and it's really measured. It's just go back to do what you did in July and August. So she's not telling the Secretary of State to conduct an election in a manner that he hasn't already done it with success twice. But if he will do that, then those people who are vulnerable because of a pre-existing comorbid health condition, as certified by the CDC, they will be able to request a ballot. Those people who've been told to quarantine. Right now, the plan submitted by the Secretary of State doesn't even take into account those people who've been told to quarantine because they're a close contact of someone who tested positive. And so they can't, under the Secretary of State's plan, they can't request a ballot by mail, but they can't go vote without violating the quarantine and potentially exposing other people to the virus. So this is a very measured but appropriate and necessary ruling by the court. I do hope the Secretary of State will take the time to really look at it, and if he does that, he will decide that he's going to, I believe, he will go forward with the election just as the court calls upon him to do so.
It was 6 months ago today that you issued the stay-at-home order, the initial one, And last week, we moved to Phase 3 under your direction. What does Phase 3 mean right now, and how is it working with some modifications?
Well, I think it's working well. Now, we know that you have about a 2-week lag time between when you have increased activity and people coming into contact with one another and when it shows up in your testing and your hospitalizations and so forth. So we haven't had that amount of time. This next Monday will be 2 weeks from Labor Day. I am hoping, praying that we don't see the kind of post-Labor Day surge that we saw post-Memorial Day, because that really started us on the way to that second surge. And unlike most states, we actually rode the crest of both surges, the one in March and April, but then again in July and August after that Memorial Day surge. So I'm hopeful that won't happen. But what we did is we increased occupancy, generally speaking, to 75%. In various venues, subject to social distancing and so forth. We issued a plan whereby bars can open with certain restrictions if they're in parishes with less than 5% positivity for 2 weeks, and the parish opts into that scheme. And so we're trying very hard to strike the right balance between public health on the one hand, opening the economy on the other. We are very concerned, as you know, because we've now had a couple of weeks, first with Laura, then with Sally, when the ability to do robust statewide testing, community-based testing, surge testing was really compromised. We also, not long ago, started up our K-12 schools, our higher education institutions. And the two, well, not really Sally so much, but Laura, we have tens of thousands of people from Southwest Louisiana who are out and about the state, sheltering, whether it's with family and friends or at hotels in New Orleans. So we're worried about all that activity, but it seems to be going well at the moment.
We are now in Phase 3 of the comeback from COVID, and the battle continues with 5,000 Louisianians who have lost their lives to this disease and more than 200,000 now nationally. And Governor Edwards has made the call to bring us to Phase 3, and that means 25% capacity at Tiger Stadium a week from Saturday. Last time you were on the show, I asked you if you would be there, and my guess is that you will. And as mentioned by you, the game between LSU and Mississippi State has particular relevance for the Edwards family.
It does, and most of Donna's family, she comes from Mississippi. Most of her family are all Bulldog fans, and so this one is personal. And I do hope to go to the game. That's the 26th of September, and I will tell you, Jim, I'm excited about LSU, all things LSU, and football in particular, and I'm very hopeful that we can do this in a way that's going to be safe for the fans, safe for the players, and so forth. It's just a very difficult time because you try to apply the science as best you can, and even the science changes. I mean, this is a novel coronavirus, and meaning it's new. And so they're learning about this particular disease all the time, and we're trying to do our very best. But I am optimistic that we'll be able to safely conduct football games with 25%, but not just at LSU, by the way, at all stadiums for football games, whether they're high school or college. Outdoor venues are safer than indoor venues, and if people will remain physically distant, make sure they wear their mask for as much of the time as possible. Don't go if you're sick, and certainly don't go if you're vulnerable. Nobody should be going to Tiger Stadium if they're 65 or older, have these comorbid health conditions, and so forth. But I'm optimistic that we're going to be able to do this safely, and I can tell you the people at LSU worked really hard to come up with a plan that allows this to be conducted in a safe way. And so I'm excited about it. I have to tell you, a little bit nervous too, but we're going to do the very best that we can, and we'll make adjustments if we need to.
Coach O yesterday said that he thought that more than half his team has already had COVID-19. Did that come as a surprise to you?
Well, it came as a surprise. I hadn't heard that before, but I guess I'm not terribly surprised because I would think that They came in from all over the state and some places around the country in order to start practicing. They live in close proximity to one another, and they're practicing, obviously, in close proximity to one another. And so it probably was something that was transmitted relatively easily in that setting. And so I hope, and I haven't heard of any of his players having real complications from it. I hope that didn't happen. And then I don't know that he was terribly specific on the exact percentage or whatever. We just want this to be a very safe experience for not just the football players, but everybody at LSU, whether they're students, faculty, staff, and for all of K through 12 and higher education for that matter. Education is critically important, and we want to have as much normalcy as possible, but without unduly posing a risk to people's health.
Lastly, before we go to the phones, I'm looking at a Advocate front page, July 14th, LHSAA's Eddie Bonine says we have to get to Phase 4 to play football. Well, we're not at Phase 4, but LHSAA is planning football games. Is that a good idea?
Well, first of all, and some people were confused about this, my orders and proclamations never talked about football as being tied to a phase. That was something that the High School Athletic Association did. And it's my understanding that they have made some adjustments, and quite frankly, my plate is full. I'm not 100% sure what all of those adjustments have been. I think it is possible to safely play high school football. I do worry, and I want to make sure that the spectators go there and maintain their social distancing. They wear their masks and so forth. And then there are certain things that they need to do. They need to make sure that the players who are participating are not symptomatic, that they're not sick, and so forth. And if they're taking those precautions and working with medical doctors and so forth, I think that it can be done safely. So I was not surprised by the change. And again, the proclamations that I have issued never tied football or any other high school athletic events to the phases that we ran.
Let's start with Mike in Des Allemands. Mike, you're on Ask the Governor with Governor John Bel Edwards.
Hello, Governor. This is Mike, and I'm calling regarding the online sales tax that I just recently discovered when I tried to do some out-of-town shopping online. Is this going to be permanent now, and what is the percentage supposed to be?
Well, the online sales tax is not anything new. It would depend, I guess, on what vendor he was using as to whether he should have experienced it for the first time. Because for many years now, any online retailer who has a physical presence in Louisiana, they've been collecting and remitting sales taxes on online purchases anyway. And we do, and after the Supreme Court, U.S. Supreme Court several years ago issued a ruling, then many other online retailers have to collect and remit sales taxes too. And this was done in order to create a level playing field so that bricks and mortar retailers in Louisiana were not at a competitive disadvantage to those who were selling the same things on the internet but without a physical presence. So the percentage, I'm not sure what he paid because it should. It depends on how that happened. But I can get some more information to him if y'all have his name and number. I can have someone from the Department of Revenue call him. I can tell you that because of COVID, well, I think it's pretty well understood, Jim, that for years now the percentage of sales happening online has been growing. The number of sales that are happening in traditional bricks and mortar retail establishments have been decreasing. That accelerated under COVID. And so one thing I know is that the remote sellers distribution, so this is online collection and remittance of sales taxes for August of 2020. So it's just last month. It exceeded $20 million for state and local collections. That's a relatively big number, and I think that's because of COVID that influenced that.
And you mentioned these bricks and mortar establishments. They were already suffering before COVID, and now this has exacerbated that. What do you make of the economy and how this will affect the state budget moving forward?
Yeah, well, that's a very interesting question, and I was just looking at the Federal Reserve Chairman Powell. He was making a presentation on CNBC. He sees the economy rebounding relatively quickly, as a study by the Baton Rouge Area Chamber, I think, that came out yesterday, said the same thing. We believe right now that we are meeting the forecast, that the economic activity in Louisiana is sufficient to meet the forecast that was put in place by the REC, and that absent some setback, that we're going to be able to maintain that pace. Now, I am concerned, quite frankly, that Congress hasn't agreed upon the second round of stimulus, and that needs to happen. Primarily because we have folks out there who are unemployed through no fault of their own, and that enhanced unemployment benefit would be very, very helpful to them and to the economy overall. There was one part of that previous answer that I had that I think I forgot to tell you. The state rate on that online purchase should have been 4.45%. So 4.45%, is the state rate. Yep.
Karen in Hammond. Hi, Karen. You're on. Oops. Let's go. Let's go to Ryan in Madisonville. Ryan, good afternoon. You're on Ask the Governor. Hi, Ryan.
Good afternoon. Hey, so I have a couple of questions regarding the open stadium seating capacity. If I understand correctly, on opensafely.la.gov, phase 2 was at 50%, correct? And now we're at 25% for phase 3?
No, that never applied to an open stadium, but we're in phase 3 now. The open stadiums are going to be 25%.
Karen in Hammond. Karen, you are on Ask the Governor with Governor John Bel Edwards.
Hi. I was wondering why restaurants are allowed to have people up in their bars and operate as bars, and the bars aren't even allowed to open regardless of what parish they're in.
Yeah, well, the bars are not allowed to function as bars in restaurants. They can use the square footage there in order to serve food. So someone can be seated at a bar in order to eat their meal, and they still have to practice social distancing for those people that are not in their party. But if they sit at the bar, the alcohol has to be incidental to the food service, just like it would be in any other portion of the restaurant. And the bar itself is not allowed to be open, and it will also have to close at a certain time at night now as well. So that's something we've done because activities at bars have proven just inherently risky with respect to the risk of transmission of the virus.
Let's go to Shreveport, and it is Josh. Josh, good afternoon. You're on Ask the Governor. Hi, Josh.
Good afternoon, Governor. Happy birthday.
Thank you, Josh.
Thank you. I had a quick question about the census in Louisiana, and I was just wondering if we are anywhere near completing anywhere near the typical rate of response that we typically would be at in previous years.
Well, Josh, it's a great question. I don't know how we stack up compared to previous censuses in Louisiana. I can tell you that in this iteration of the census, we are well behind most states, and the census period ends 2 weeks from today. September the 30th is the last day, so we have 2 weeks to get our response rate up. The self-response rate, those are the people who are going online or calling the number, is really low. It's a little less than 60%. If the census takers are out there getting information too, and if you add all of that together, we're at about 85.4%, and we're way behind other states, especially on that self-response rate. So now is the time. You only have 2 weeks left. We are encouraging people to make sure that you go to my2020census.gov and complete that form. It'll only take a couple of minutes, and every year there's about $14 billion worth of census-driven funding that comes to Louisiana. So this and it determines representation in Congress and districts and all that sort of stuff too. So it's very important, Josh. Thank you for the question.
Let's go to Natasha in New Orleans. Natasha, you're on the air with Governor Edwards. Hi, Natasha.
Hi, happy birthday, Governor. I have a quick question about unemployment. What is being done to help those on... Hi, Governor, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, you cut out for a moment, but I got you now, Natasha. Thank you.
Okay, happy birthday. I just have a quick unemployment question. What is being done to help those on unemployment due to COVID whose unemployment benefit is at the less than $100 line? And is the state, for example, the state's only granting $30 to $8 a week or something like that? Is there another program or a way to reapply? And how and where is the information on this?
Yeah, well, first of all, give your information. I'll have somebody from LWC call you to discuss your particular situation. The challenge we're having is primarily on the enhanced federal benefit because when Congress did not pass a stimulus that included an enhanced federal benefit, then the benefits expired on July 31st, I think it was. And so by presidential action, the president took money from the Disaster Relief Fund in FEMA and made it available for lost wage assistance. But the way that was done, and this is the first time it's ever been done, then there wasn't money available for certain people in Louisiana for the federal assistance who had been getting it previously. And what they didn't allow us to do, anybody who wasn't getting $300 a month couldn't continue to get it. I'm sorry, the lost wage assistance was for $300 a month. But for certain individuals who had previously been getting it, they couldn't continue to get it because they wouldn't allow us to average the total benefit that we were paying from the state. And if the state wasn't paying at least $100 a month, then they didn't allow those individuals to get it. So as it turns out, the lost wage assistance, we have one more week that we're going to pay those benefits out. I think it's an additional $92 million. And then that program will have run its course because the Disaster Relief Fund will have spent the $44 billion, I think it was, that they had available for this fund. So what we need is for Congress to pass another stimulus bill for COVID that has an enhanced federal unemployment benefit. And I'll tell you, Natasha, we are challenged from the state side, too, because the state-prescribed unemployment benefit comes out of our trust fund. Our trust fund dropped yesterday below $100 million for the first time. And so we're going to be borrowing money interest-free from the U.S. Treasury in order to be able to continue to pay those benefits out as well. But as the trust fund erodes like that, then the benefit itself actually gets reduced. So the whole unemployment situation is a big challenge for us right now. But Natasha, I'll have somebody give you a call to talk to your specific situation.
Let's go to Roland in Baton Rouge. Roland, you're on the air with the governor.
Yeah, thank you for taking my call. Look, I got a statement and then a question. I just turned 80. And I put the lights in the governor's office back in '66, summer '66, when they redid the governor's office there. The question now is, there's a car plant in Shreveport. Is it being fully utilized?
First of all, Roland, thank you very much for the call, and thank you for the work that you did back in the 1966, the year I was born, at the governor's mansion. The car plant in Shreveport has not been fully utilized since GM exited that particular facility. I can tell you that the entire time that I've been governor, and even before that, because it's been vacant for a while, that there have been ongoing efforts by the Department of Economic Development working with the city of Shreveport in order to market that facility. And without getting into anything that I can't talk about because we have certain obligations and agreements not to disclose certain information, There are conversations going on right now with two different parties about that particular plant and putting it back into operation in a way that would be very, very helpful to the Freeport community and to the state of Louisiana.
Thank you, Roland. James in Longview, Texas. Hello, James. You're on Ask the Governor.
Well, good afternoon, Governor Edwards. Happy birthday. I have to admit, I'm a couple years older than you, and I'm 56, but you're catching up to me, and I just wanted to wish you happy birthday. And I want to ask you, how do you, this all sincerity, how do you manage to mentally get through all these crises? I got to applaud you with the hurricanes, the storms, the bureaucratic red tape, the political jungle. I mean, do you rely on faith or just gut instinct to keep persevering? I just applaud you all the way around.
Well, thank you, James. I appreciate it, and I appreciate that you listen to the show monthly and call in most of the time as well. Look, we have wonderful people here in Louisiana, and the team that we have working at the state level has just been terrific. So all of the various cabinet level secretaries, all the emergency folks, whether it's here at GOSEP where I happen to be working today, the local partners have been tremendous, the faith-based community. I will tell you that I am a person of faith. Donna and I have a very active prayer life, and we pray together every morning before I leave, and then typically again at night as well. And that does seem to be something that I rely upon more and more as I get older and the responsibilities get heavier. And there's been nothing easy, particularly in this year. As it relates to the challenges first by COVID and then how they impact the economy and then the storms, especially Hurricane Laura. So it's been a tremendous challenge. But I feel very fortunate to be the governor of we always say the great state of Louisiana, but our state is great. Our people make it great. We have good, generous, decent, hardworking people here. And it's a pleasure to be the governor. I really am looking forward to hopefully a few less challenges, and I know that the people of Louisiana want that as well. But we don't get to make those determinations, and we have to lead through whatever challenges we're dealt, and that's what we're trying to do. And I know it's difficult for people, and it's difficult for me and everybody else. But together we're going to get through it. We're going to come out on the other side, and we're going to be stronger as a result of it.
It was after our last show that the catastrophic Hurricane Laura hit southwest Louisiana, and you've been there multiple times. How is it looking right now?
Well, Jim, when they say that it's been 156 years since a storm that strong hit Louisiana, I will tell you that's got to be right, because the devastation is just tremendous, and it is so widespread. And nobody in southwest Louisiana, Cameron, Calcasieu, Beauregard, and those areas, they've lived through a number of storms, as you know, but they can't remember any devastation like this. And, we have about 65,000 or so electricity outages right now. Over 90% are in those three parishes because the electrical infrastructure was just so heavily damaged and in many places destroyed. It's going to be a while before that area comes back because we have a lot of housing work that we have to do. There's a lot of businesses that have been damaged, and basic life supporting systems like water systems and electricity, hospitals, nursing homes, all of that. And we're working extremely hard. And I will tell you, the folks there on the ground, the mayors, the police jurors, everybody just working so hard. And doing really good work, but it's very, very difficult, and it's enough to break your heart when you go over and you talk to people and you see how they've been adversely impacted. But I will tell you that the federal partnership has been good too. The relief that we've gotten has been timely, and everything that we've asked for the most part, has been granted, and so we're very thankful for that, but we do have a long way to go, Jim. And now is still not the time for people to go sightseeing in that area because there's still an awful lot of work that's taking place. But the pictures really don't do it justice. When you go there and you fly over it or you ride the streets in Lake Charles and go down into Cameron Parish, for example, you get a real sense for just how catastrophic the damage is.
Gabriel in Livingston Parish. Gabriel, you're on Ask the Governor.
Happy birthday, Governor. How are you?
Thank you. I'm doing well. I appreciate it.
I wanted to tell you, I'm 50 years old. I registered as a Republican. You're the only Democrat I voted for, and if you run for anything else, I will vote for you again. I think what you have done for this state through everything that we've been through, it's been astonishing. I don't know how much you get paid. I'm sure it's public record, but they need to double that.
Well, it is public record, so I don't mind telling you it's $130,000 a year. But you're very kind, Gabriel. I appreciate the call, and those comments were very, very pleasing. Appreciate you.
Let's go to Jackie in St. Louis, Missouri. Jackie, good afternoon. You're on the air with the governor of Louisiana.
Good afternoon, Governor Edwards. My name is Jackie Peterson. I actually live in St. Louis, Missouri. First of all, happy birthday. And
Thank you very
secondly,
much.
thank you for your outstanding leadership during the unpleasantness of coronavirus, the storms, etc. My specific question has to do with voting for those people who have been evacuated from the Lake Charles, Cameron, Westlake area. We have lots of family there. And that's a question that's come up. I went on to the Secretary of State website, pulled up the form, but the last step in that is that you send it to the local registrar of voters, and there's no one there to send it to.
All right, Governor, we started the show talking about this, but what about the people who have been displaced?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's a great question, Jackie, and some of those people are in Texas, by the way. We have, and this is going to improve between now and the election, but we have close to 5,000 people who are sheltering in Texas, and I want to thank again the Texas government and governor for doing that for us. And then we have about 12,000 or so who continue to shelter in Louisiana, but outside of their parish of domicile. So if early voting starts and these individuals are not yet back in their parish of residence, they can go ahead and request an absentee ballot for the reason that we've always been able to do it, and that is that they expect to be out of the parish on Election Day. And, of course, that request has to go to the registrar of voters in those parishes. And we're working very hard, by the way, to make sure that those offices are up and running and get reconnected with electricity. We've created a task force on the election that we're working with the Secretary of State to try to make sure that polling places have electricity, that we have all of the PPE that we need in these storm-damaged areas. And this is going to be hardest in Cameron and Calcasieu and Beauregard, as you can imagine. And so we're focusing our efforts there. But individuals who are evacuated, not yet back in the parish of domicile by the time early voting starts, they can request an absentee ballot from their registrar of voters, and they just check the box that says that they don't anticipate being in the parish on Election Day.
Nick in Baton Rouge. Hello, Nick. You're on Ask the Governor. Good afternoon, Nick. Okay, let's see if we can get Nick back, and while we're doing that, we'll go to Kevin in New Orleans. Kevin, good afternoon. You're on the air with Governor John Bell Edwards. Hi, Kevin.
Hi, good afternoon, Governor Edwards, and happy birthday again.
Kevin, appreciate that.
I wanted to ask you about COVID in the prisons and jails. We're concerned about the rapid spread and it going into the communities where those jails and prisons are located. Can you tell us what you're doing to address COVID in the prisons and jails and without using the solitary confinement?
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's a great question because any congregant setting that is in a community is going to pick up cases from the community because you're going to have staff members, whether they're correctional officers or whether they're nurses in nursing homes and that sort of thing. It's a great question, and it's obviously something that's very difficult. One of the things that we've been doing is mass testing across Louisiana in the prisons to try to make sure that we have our finger on the pulse of what's happening and that we can take positive individuals and move them out of the areas where they are so that they no longer pose a risk of transmitting. I will tell you that thus far we've had 5 deaths among correctional officers or employees of the Department of Corrections, and currently we have about 88 positive cases for staff members. With respect to the prison population, we've got 59 symptomatic cases, 185 asymptomatic cases in our state prisons right now, And on Friday, about 130 of those asymptomatic cases will be recovered because we know how long ago they became positive. And then, unfortunately, we've had 26 deaths in the corrections system. Today, we only have 9 inmates. I say only; that's a lot, especially if you're one of them. But we have 9 inmates in the hospital with COVID, and so because of the testing, that's informed the decisions about where we place inmates, how we segregate. We do isolation, sometimes just reverse isolation, and so forth. It's obviously very difficult. It's a challenging environment, but Jimmy LeBlanc and his folks at the Department of Corrections have performed extremely well. But testing is the key, and they have administered well over 10,000 tests. And he gave me the number this morning, and I apologize, I just can't remember what it is. But he gave me the number of tests that they've actually done, and it's just a tremendous amount of testing.
Mary in Marksville. Hi, Mary. You're on with the governor.
Oh, good afternoon, Governor. I have a question about vote by mail. In light of the pandemic, does the state have a good plan for mail voting or voting by mail? And do you think voting by mail is a good option for folks like me who have underlying health issues?
Yes, it is a good idea for you. And in fact, it's the best thing we can do for you, especially if you're not 65. And you don't plan to be going on Election Day. Your ability to request a absentee ballot will depend upon whether the court order that was issued today is actually the one that gets implemented. I hope it will be, because she ruled that the state needs to go back to the plan we had in place for the July and August elections that allow individuals like you to request a ballot to vote by mail. And so we're not talking about universal mail ballots. We're not talking about registrars sending one out to every registered voter. We're not even talking about every registered voter being able to request them. But if, for example, you are vulnerable because of a comorbid health condition, if you're under an order of I'm not necessarily an order, but if you're supposed to be quarantining because you're a close contact with someone who is COVID positive, you should be able to request a mail ballot in order to protect your health or the health of others who you would be in contact with if you have to go vote. And nobody should ever have to make a decision about, am I going to vote? Am I going to exercise my constitutional right to vote, or am I going to jeopardize my health? Or am I going to jeopardize the health of others in ways that contravene the CDC guidelines? And so the court order today, I think, it's an important step in that direction. I do hope the Secretary of State will see the wisdom in it. In fact, all it asks him to do or tells him to do is what he did in July and August. And so hopefully that's going to happen, and then people in the situation of the caller are not going to have to make that just awful decision.
Let's try Nick again in Baton Rouge. Nick, you're on the air.
Hey, Governor, happy birthday. September 16th, 1966. I got 3 questions for you. Day you were born, what day of the week was it? Who was the governor of Louisiana at the time, and who was the president of the United States?
Well, I don't know the answer to the first. I know Governor McKinnon was in office, and I know Lyndon Baines Johnson was our president. But because I have a 1 in 7 chance of getting it right, I'm going to say I was born on a Tuesday.
You were born on a Friday. TGIF.
Okay, well, thank you for pointing that out. I had no idea.
Have a great birthday.
All right.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Nick. And that was 1 year before the New Orleans Saints played their first game, and the Green Bay Packers were on their way to a world championship with Jimmy Taylor. And let's see, the Baltimore Orioles were the champions in baseball that year. But Governor, more seriously, this was 6 months ago today that you instituted the stay-at-home order, and we know now from the tapes that Bob Woodward collected with the president that on February 7th, the president knew that we were in dire straits potentially, that this was a deadly virus, that it was airborne, and that it could be a devastating factor in our lives. When did you first become aware of the situation that we are now facing?
Well, we studied the virus every day, and we participate in phone calls with the White House Coronavirus Task Force at least once a week. That's principally how we get updates, but there have been a number of times when I've been able to call Dr. Fauci or Dr. Birx or Dr. Gerard directly and ask questions. But I will tell you, our Office of Public Health here at LDH, they've been on top of things. Dr. Alex BU, and it's a novel coronavirus, and so the medical community didn't know everything about it at the beginning, and have learned, and so we've had to learn with them, and sometimes you have to adjust. And I know you'll remember that at first they weren't recommending that individuals wear a mask outside of the hospital setting or the healthcare provider setting, and that changed once they realized that this virus is spread through these small droplets that are breathed out and coughed out and sneezed out and so forth. And so we've just been trying very hard to be guided by the data and the science, and when the CDC makes a recommendation, that's what we do here in Louisiana. I think that's the best way to proceed. It's the only way that I can feel comfortable, because I try very hard not to substitute my judgment for that of the experts. And so that's why these mitigation measures are so important today. I mean, people need to wear masks or face coverings. They need to wash their hands frequently, stay 6 feet from people who are not part of their immediate household. Obviously, stay home when you're sick. And if you're vulnerable, you really need to take all of these things into consideration. Stay home when you can. This is very difficult. 5,126 Louisianans have died because of COVID. We have the most cases per capita in the country. It has been a very challenging emergency to manage. But again, I want to thank the people of Louisiana because they have stepped up time and time again.
Well, thank you, Governor, and happy birthday.